G'day mate, 40 here. So Bad Hombre reports on Twitter, and he's been reliable in the past. There was a somber meeting at Kamala Harris campaign headquarters this morning with Kamala, Tim Walz, Jen O'Malley, the director of the campaign, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. And the mood was solemn. Right? Similar to the mood at CNN, but I'd say the mood at CNN right now, what comes across as panicked. But Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have been told to prepare for a devastating loss tomorrow. And we should know tomorrow, we should know by 6:30 p.m. West Coast time. And in fact, we might even know right now, because Democrats are only ahead by 400,000 votes in the early voting in Pennsylvania, and they need to be ahead by at least 500,000 to have the hope of winning Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania looks very much out of reach for Kamala. Wisconsin looks out of reach. Donald Trump stands a 50% chance of taking New Hampshire. Also has non-trivial chance of taking Virginia and New Mexico. So things are lining up for a decisive Donald Trump victory, and we should know that by early tomorrow evening, if we don't already know it now. So the Republican advantage in the early vote was incredible in the first 3 days of early voting, and it has cooled down somewhat, but Republicans still hold what appears to be a decisive advantage in early voting, given to how Republicans typically vote on the day of the election. And you hear comments from leading Democratic political operatives such as Jim Messina, who says that the early voting turnout has just not been there for Kamala Harris. Right? The groups that she depends on for victory, right? Blacks, Latinos, have not been showing up. On the other hand, admit that the bro vote, young men vote in early voting, has not been strong. But overall, it appears the Republicans have banked enough early votes that they can feel confident of victory, and we should know early tomorrow night. I don't think it's going to be close, so we're not going to be racked by days of waiting. The evidence is going to pour in. And if Trump wins New Hampshire, we'll know that very early on. We'll know that by 4 p.m. on the West Coast. Or if he's even within a couple of points in New Hampshire, it's a strong sign that it's going to be a big night for Donald Trump. David Axelrod, Obama's political operator, also has said on CNN that the early votes have not turned up for Kamala Harris from the groups that she depends on for victory, blacks and Latinos. So this was the key that I had in 2016, that things were looking good for Trump by about 10:30 that morning. Right, there was word that the black turnout in Pennsylvania was low. And the Democrats are the black party. Right? Blacks have disproportionate influence on the Democratic Party. And if they're not enthused, if they're not turning out, if they don't think of Kamala as their black sister, right, that's going to be devastating for her chances. Now, I don't know how important the platform X has been for this election, but my suspicion is it's been pretty important, because not only have we had a restoration of free speech on X. This has filtered through to the other major platforms who need to compete. And there needs to be a monopoly in social media companies if they're going to keep information hidden, such as the Hunter Biden laptop story in the final days of the 2020 campaign. And with X opened up to free speech under Elon Musk, that has forced a removal of all sorts of censorship on YouTube and Facebook. Right? You can question the efficacy of vaccines now on YouTube and Facebook. You can question the legitimacy of past elections. Right? All sorts of things that would automatically get you banned, get you strikes on YouTube and Facebook. They have been lifted because YouTube and Facebook didn't want to be exposed as overly censorious when you had this free-flowing discussion on X. And you can also see all sorts of signs that the owners of YouTube and Facebook are aware of what people are saying on their platforms. They're aware of strong sentiment for Donald Trump. They have been taking steps to move their companies towards the political center. They've been reaching out to Republicans to try to establish a working relationship. They've been reaching out to people connected with Donald Trump. And so when X opened up, that forced YouTube and Facebook to open up as well. Right? There's no longer an elite stranglehold over the national conversation. And the owners of Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, right, they know what people are saying. Right? They have access to all sorts of data that we don't. So they're aware of strong pro-Trump sentiment on their platforms. You can understand Jeff Bezos not wanting the Washington Post to make an endorsement as a recognition of why burn your ties to Donald Trump. And I remember when Elon Musk was flirting with taking over the Twitter, and Richard Spencer was talking about how it's not going to make any difference. Elon Musk is just a con man. Well, Elon Musk, for all his flaws, for all his variable appearances of acting the fool, acting the con man, he's pretty close to, if not the world's richest man, and it's not for good reason. Right? He's developed a lot of companies, and he has restored X. It's the first place that I look for breaking news. It's the first place that I go to for uncensored conversation. And it's had a ripple effect. It's like our lives. When we're virtuous, it encourages people around us to be virtuous. When we tell hard truths, it encourages other people around us to tell hard truths. When we show up on time, it encourages other people to show up on time. When we stand up for what's right, it encourages other people to stand up for what's right. So there's been this whole virtuous cycle created by Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And Robert, the guy behind the Trafalgar polling, made this point in a recent interview, and I thought it was a profound one. That it's really hard to shut down conversations when you no longer have a monopoly on the big platforms. And the liberal left no longer has a monopoly on the major social media companies, thanks to Elon Musk. Like, I keep reloading X when I want the latest information on Israel's war with Iran, when I want the latest information on this election, when there's breaking news, when there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. I kept reloading X. It's the first place that I look. It's far superior. I do still check out the Drudge Report once a day. There are some interesting links. Drudge Report has gone strongly anti-Trump. See, Richard Spencer endorsed Kamala Harris. All right, let's look at the chat. All right, I am in Westwood. So I'm right outside UCLA, 5 miles from the Pacific Ocean. I'm in Los Angeles, Southern California. Oh, where is the compelling evidence of repeated inebriation on the parts of Kamala Harris? Why have even the Trump campaign dropped it? Good question. I think we'll find out more. We'll find out all sorts of things in the books that follow with deep dives on this election. And we're either going to find out that she's got an alcohol problem, benzodiazepine problem, or her insecurity manifests in ways that make her appear intoxicated. Because sometimes people have asked me, are you drunk? And I'm not drunk. I'm just exuberant. Where am I from? I am from Sydney, Australia. Alex says X is full of lies. You know who else is full of lies? You are, and I am, and people in our lives. All right? People rarely say what they mean what they say. People have incentives to shade the truth, to dissemble. So here's the important part. If you are honest with yourself, right? Not other people, but if you're honest with yourself, then you will quickly recognize when other people are saying things that don't make sense, and you'll see that they are either self-deceived or they are knowingly trying to lie and manipulate you. If you're honest with yourself, you are very hard to manipulate. When I get lost in my need for narcissistic supply, my need for attention, my vulnerability to flattery, right? When I get out of touch with honesty about myself, then I become quite easy to manipulate. So you have to be careful about who you follow on X, and you have to use good judgment. And so when I see ridiculous tweets, I stop following people. I largely follow academics and thoughtful people such as Steve Saylor and Charles Murray. Now, if you can't discern the truth from the false on X, right, you're likely not able to tell yourself the truth. And because you're living in a world of delusion to hide yourself from harsh truths, then it will be difficult to discern when other people are telling you the truth. So a lot of financial problems are a disease of vagueness. You don't want to get specific about how much money you're spending versus how much money you're earning, how you're spending your time, what progress you're making towards your goals. Right? You'd rather stay vague because the truth is too painful for you. What a beautiful morning here in LA. It's going to be high of 72. To be honest with yourself, to only hear what you want to hear? Nope. I am just wandering around sharing my thoughts, mate. And I'm going to keep walking as long as I've got things to share. And then I'm going to log off YouTube and listen to some podcasts. So it's striking how two of the top Democratic political operatives sound so dour, so down, and share the same message, that the early vote indicates that Kamala Harris's constituency is simply not turning out. And just as I saw early election day 2016 that blacks weren't turning out for Hillary Clinton, which meant that Donald Trump had a chance of winning, right, so too we can recognize that with blacks and Latinos not turning out in the numbers that Kamala requires, that there's a reason that her meeting this morning at campaign headquarters was so dour. Now, Iran supposedly is going to attack Israel from bases in Iraq. I gotta get some water. No water. Water. When you're on ADHD medication, vitally important that you drink lots of water. Very easy to get dry mouth. So Donald Trump is like a poster child for ADHD. And when I hear people saying, why won't Donald Trump exercise more discipline? Why won't Donald Trump exercise more care in the things he says? Why won't he ADHD? And Mark Halperin was talking yesterday about how Donald Trump should take steps to try to regain a better working relationship with the news media. He shouldn't be saying things like he wouldn't care if journalists got shot, and that Donald Trump should reach out to the tens of millions of Americans who are afraid of his next term. And I never heard Halperin or almost any pundit mention that Donald Trump is a classic case of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's so much more powerful an explanation and a prediction for his behavior than narcissism and all the other psychological terms that are tossed around. Right? If someone's got ADHD and then not on medication, right, they can try to control their physical hyperactivity, but then it will spill out in their words, or they may have success controlling their words, but their hyperactivity will spill out in their gestures and their movements. And so unless Trump is willing to get medicated and stay on his meds, right,